All right. Well, thank you all, for joining. And this afternoon, I'm here together with Bogdan Stoyan. We've been working together, I think, at SeedBlink for almost 3 years now. And we've been part of the journey of SeedBlink evolving from an investment platform to what is currently now a investment and equity infrastructure for European companies. Today we'll be tackling the topic of what a clean cap table means and how it looks like, both from a company perspective, but also reflecting at what it means in order for you to get a funding round, and also how do you actually manage, and what does managing a cap table mean? What are the best practices in terms of both legally speaking, platform speaking, and the things that we've seen at SeedBlink over the course of the past over the course of the past 3 years. So thank you for joining. I'll invite Bogdan to also introduce himself a bit, and then we can dive deeper into the topic of today.
Cool. First of all, thank you for attending. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Eric. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's almost 3 years since we've been working together at SeedBlink. In the 3 years that we've been here, I think I can say that I've seen a few hundreds, or if not even more, of cap tables. Good ones, bad ones, with some small mistakes, with some bigger mistakes. So I hope the insights that we're gonna present today are gonna help you to understand a bit better and be more aware of how your cap table is impacting the business and the future growth of your company. I'm going to share my screen, and we prepared some sort of a presentation that will allow us to actually have a better course of interaction. Should be fine now. Eric, can you confirm that you can see it and everything is fine?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. So yeah, as Eric mentioned earlier, the webinar that we've organized for today is why clean cap table makes your startup more investable and how to achieve it. When you look at the cap table, and when you take into consideration your cap table, looking at the company, that's the core of your company. Upside, there are the investors, there is the board, there is the people that take decisions for the company, and under the cap table is the whole operational side of the company. So managing your cap table will need to create a full circle when it comes to actually managing all the people that are involved within the important decision and the importance of taking next steps for your business when it comes to development. Regarding the agenda, you can see on the screen exactly what we're going to discuss today. Probably is going to be an interaction between me and Eric on the multiple subjects that you can see on the screen. I'm just going to move forward at the first slide, and it's the cap table. We at SeedBlink, when we started back a few years ago, we were using the Excel version of managing the cap tables. And when I'm talking about cap tables, I'm talking about startups, I'm talking about investment vehicles, I'm talking about I don't know, even smaller or angel networks that came to us in order to manage their investments. And we've seen the struggles that we had with the cap tables when they became complicated. And the most important thing that I've noticed is the fact that you always need to be sure that the math behind the cap table is correct. Because a mistake that you do at I don't know, your first investment round at pre-seed or post-MVP or MVP level, a mistake back then can result into really large legal fees at a later point in time if you would like to correct those. So taking into consideration that, starting from the bottom as a startup, your cap table needs to be as crisp as possible when it comes to the accuracy of what's presented in. The cap table does not only include the people that own equity within the company. That's really important to know as well. So besides you as the founders, you probably have the equity within the cap table, but you choose to go for a convertible note when you're raising your initial round, or for a safe, or any other type of investment instrument that is not equity. All those people that are going to invest within your company with a convertible loan, for example, are still part of it, and they will receive equity at some point. For you, in order to have an overview of the cap table, you always need to take into consideration multiple things. So as I mentioned, equity, yeah, it's really important. The percentages, the number of shares, what type of shares each and every other individual within the cap table has. And you can do that with the trade registry. You always need to have clarity on your cap table, because you need to report it quite often towards the trade registry from each and every other jurisdiction where your companies are incorporated. And then in order to move forward and understand how your cap table is going to evolve, you need to look at stuff such as convertible notes, as I mentioned earlier, a stock option plan that you might have as part of your investment vehicles, that will imply the fact that there will be some employees that might join at some point within your cap. What's important regarding the cap table as well, and I wanted to mention that, is the fact that if you are under the obligation to always take into consideration the people that have the right to vote. So I think the number of shares and the percentages of the people that can vote within a company are going to be incremental when you're going to plan a new investment round. I don't know, need to change something within the business, and due to the articles of incorporation, you need the acceptance of the majority of the shareholders that are part of the cap table. So all of these are things that you need to look at and be aware of. And as I mentioned before, lawyers usually are super expensive. And I don't know exactly how many times you've interacted with lawyers, but I can tell you that early stage, you want as less interaction as possible with them, because the invoice is not going to be easy to handle, at least the early stage, as I mentioned. Eric, if you have anything else to on this area that you want to add, or otherwise, I'm going to move to the second part.
Now let's move to the second part.
Thank you. So, how investors look at your cap table, and the fact that Eric is more knowledgeable on this area, I'm gonna let him start to talk about.
Sure. So I think there are several points that are relevant especially looking at the stage of companies, and we can look at the founding of a company up to the spectrum of what we know through SeedBlink. So let's say Series B, Series C kind of type of companies. And so if we start if at the beginning, there should only be the founders, and there should be as a clear-cut split between the founders. And there's been several discussions and school of thoughts as to how do you split your equity. If there are two founders, is it 50-50? If there are three founders, is it equally? But I think what's very important from the beginning is that the shareholding should be split in such a way that it makes sense for the founders, and that it reflects, let's call it, the power dynamics and the balance between within the founding partners. And I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to do it. It's just a question of doing it in such a way that it reflects the power dynamics of the company. If Bogdan and I, start a company, and has 10 years of experience in a certain domain, and then we open up a company in that certain domain, maybe it would be good to reflect it in such a way that Bogdan has a majority stake over myself, and has a 60-40 split, in order to actually reflect that decision-making power and experience. So I think that's the first thing, and splitting your equity in such a way that it doesn't create conflicts over time is a very important step to do at the beginning. And it should be a very open-hearted decision between the founders when you actually create the company, is to split the pie in such a way that it allows a long-standing relationship, and there are no egos bruised or whatsoever. And that should be the first step. Then there's also, of course, a discussion of creating a stock option plan. And depending on the companies, there are some companies that do it right from the beginning. And the reason for that is, you want to have some senior people from the beginning. You're not offering them straight equity in your cap table, but you're creating a stock option plan over the next of 2 to 4 years in which they're incentivized to come along. And usually, I think it's the rule applies that the sooner the better, and we're seeing more and more startups that are doing this stock option plans from their inception. But then there are different companies that are doing it from the seed round. I think at Series A, 99% of the companies that we've seen already have a stock option plan in place. So I would say that anywhere from founding to Series A, there's also a stock option plan being there, and the spectrum of it looks anywhere between 8 to 20%, depending on the jurisdiction, depending on how the company is being split, and as well as also how many people you actually put into that stock option plan. So these are the main things to look at. At the same time, I think it's also super important to mention that the early days are usually also the most unclear in a company's journey. So we've seen plenty of situations in which 2 people or 3 people start a company, then they fight over some stupid thing, and then they realize 6 months in that one of the founders needs to leave. So what's very important in that moment is to reflect very quickly these changes also in the shareholding structure of the company. A red flag that typically investors don't like to see is a large chunk of the company being owned by someone who is no longer with the firm, who left for whatever reason. So I think that's a very important aspect of when starting a company, and is to keeping it as clean and as lean as possible, and that only people with an active stake and an active involvement into a company should be part of the shareholding structure of the firm. So and this is not something that cannot be fixed, in the sense that everything at the end of the day, it's part of some sort of negotiation, it's part of some sort of discussions, and it's extremely important to just have these open-hearted discussions and to find a solution that allows the company to actually progress. Because otherwise, if a founder with 30% leaves and there's 30% within the company that is not being owned by someone active within the firm, even though you may be able to attract a seed round, this will for sure be a major bottleneck for a Series A round or for a Series B round, when the pie gets smaller and the pie is getting split into increasingly more types of investors and numbers of investors. Additionally, I think another point that's relevant at looking is, depending on the jurisdiction, there's also a split between the economic rights and the voting rights of the shares. I'm not sure exactly where our audience is coming from today, but I think this is worth mentioning on a European level, that we're seeing increasingly. And if you look at the large companies of the world, I don't know, Facebook, UiPath as some examples, even though the founders, Zuckerberg or Daniel Dinesh, they own around, let's say, 10% of the firm, their voting power is at around 40, or actually more, and this is also something that can be looked into in this from the beginning, to create and actually separate the voting rights from the economic rights, and to create different classes of shares depending on when the investors actually invest. An additional point that I didn't make, but is extremely important, is how split and how many people are actually in the cap table. Why is that important? Is just the speed of execution of taking any kind of decision in this, and then what's the risk of someone not signing, or someone being upset, or someone, not feeling like signing some document, and just basically creating a huge bottleneck in your corporate governance, just for the simple fact that I don't know, they don't feel like it. And that's why, we're seeing an increase in this trend of syndicating larger pools of investors, and then basically keeping only investors in with a large enough chunk that they actually want to and need, so to speak, to participate in the active part of the in the part of the company. So this is, worth mentioning, but we can dive a bit deeper in the Q&A part of this topic. So I would suggest we can move forward onto the next one.
Cool, perfect. Thank you, Eric. So just a second. All right, that's it. So the next one should be strategies to manage a growing list of shareholders without compromising operational efficiency. This has been touched by Eric in the last part that he mentioned, with the syndicalization of multiple or larger amounts of investors that do not hold a large amount of shares within the company. There are multiple ways in which you can do that, and what you want to do and what you want to assure your investors is the fact that their rights are still gonna be in place, so they're not going to lose any right, even though they won't see their names anymore directly into the cap table. So that's one important thing that you need to clarify with them prior to actually doing such a syndicalization. And also, besides that, you need to make sure that at any point in time, they're not going to receive any additional tax burdens from the syndicalization. That's why there are multiple vehicles, as I mentioned, in different jurisdictions that they can accommodate such a feature towards your investors. And I can tell you from experience, from the SeedBlink experience, that it makes it a lot easier when it comes to either voting rights or, I don't know, splits of share. If you'd like to flip the company into another jurisdiction, it's gonna be way easier to manage it if you have, I don't know, a vehicle that's going to aggregate 40 people that are part of your cap table, compared to actually flipping a company with 60 shareholders within the cap table. So these strategies need to be started as early as possible, so you don't have to deal with I don't know, syndicating a large amount of shareholders while raising a new investment round, because having to do them both at the same time, it's going to become hard to do it. So managing it from an operational and legal point of view, you're going to find quite a lot of struggles, because the whole process is not that easy to combine the both that I mentioned earlier. And another good strategy is to actually when you discuss with your angel investors early on, so or when you're adding new people to the cap table, make them aware that this might happen at some point. Because yeah, probably pre-Series A or pre-seed, you're not going to face such a challenge. But when you get to Series A and post-Series A, this will probably be one of the things that you're gonna have to tackle. And yeah, and emphasize here would be, okay, how long does it take to sign a document with all your shareholders today? There are 10 people within the cap table. It takes a week to do so. Think about 60 people. As Eric mentioned earlier, the problems that might appear are more and more common, and they increase with the number of people that are part of the cap table. So they are directly proportionate with the number of people. Cool. That's mostly regarding the strategies, how to manage a growing list of shareholders. There isn't a right way to do it. There are multiple ways to actually approach um, such an action, and you can manage it yourself. You can manage it via other service providers. That's not going to be an issue. If Eric doesn't have anything else to add here, I'm gonna move forward with the next slide. So how to avoid dilution, diluting your ownership too much in the initial rounds of funding and safeguarding your stake in your company. First of all, the advice that they usually give when I'm talking with early stage startup is to not get greedy early stage, because the equity that you give away at an early stage in your life cycle as a startup is going to be the most expensive equity that you're gonna give up. So if your valuation today is 1 million and you want to, I don't know, raise 100K, even though you don't need the full 100K, you only need like 70 in order to reach your next milestones and increase your valuation and look at the next investment round. Think about the fact that you're going to give away 10% of your company. That 10% that you give up today when your valuation is quite low, probably is going to mean a few million or more than 10 million or so on when you're gonna have an actual valuation and when your startup is going to be on track with what you want to achieve. Because you, as the founder, you should always prepare in advance with at least one or two investment rounds in order to imagine at least the level of dilution that you are going to encounter based on the amount of money that you want to raise. Over dilution early stage doesn't make sense because you want to keep your decisional power within your hands. So that's important as well. You don't want to give away too much equity early stage because you're gonna lose easily the power that you have when it comes to taking a decision of how you want to move forward with the company. That's really important. Besides that, Eric was mentioning a few minutes ago regarding the debt equity. So you have one of your founders decides like 6 months after you start a project that they don't want to be part of it anymore, and they said, okay, I'm gonna be out. In order to avoid that, and in order to avoid having to always, I don't know, put extra work to make the people that are not involved in the life of the startup, you when you create the articles of incorporation, the initial articles of incorporation of the company that only takes into consideration the initial founders, you can create some mechanisms and put some options in which, okay, you as a founder in the first, I don't know, 36 months of the life of the startup, you're not interested anymore to be part of it. This give us the right to actually buy you out or give us some sort of mechanism that will allow us to take over your equity, and you will accept that because that was the deal that we had at the start. So the dilution can come even from the investment rounds or from the debt equity that exists within the company. What I can tell you here is also early stage. You need to be careful with the pro rata that you promise towards the investors. When a startup is at an early stage, they usually tend to negotiate with their investors quite a lot because they need the money. They need the money to increase their revenue, to increase the marketing area. So they need an injection of money as soon as possible. And sometimes they overlook the fact that giving up, I don't know, pro rata towards all the investors, or I don't know, a more favorable than the normal pro rata for future investment round might bring them an over dilution that will cause issues in the future, and probably at the next one or two investment rounds, the VC funds that will look at you will tell you that, all right, if you are trying to raise this amount of money and all your current investors are gonna activate their pro rata rights, it might become an issue that you don't have the majority of the company within your hands, and straightforward from that, it's okay, you're losing the decisional power of how the startup should develop. So coming back to the first thing where I started is that be careful not to be too greedy at an early stage, because the larger the valuation that you have for the company, the better it is for you to raise money. It makes sense. It's simple math. You need to simply as a founder, you have the duty to understand exactly how much money you need in order to get to the next stage and raise your new investment plan. And doing that will help you avoid over diluting yourself and over diluting your initial investors as well. Eric, do you have anything on this area that you would like to add, or should I move forward?
I wanted to not fully agree with the statement that you made in the sense that a bigger valuation is not always better. In the
Okay.
sense that I think, I mean, of course, from a dilution perspective, it's better, but at the same time, you should just be aware that if you raise at too high of a valuation early stage, the risk of you not being able to deliver and to raise a new round is significantly higher, in the sense that you should raise at a valuation that reflects your stage and raise as little as you need in order to grow, and in that way to actually avoid the dilution problem that you face.
Cool. Thank you for completing that thing. Yeah, you are right. I was just talking about over dilution here, and that's why I made that. Cool. Then I'm going to move forward to the simulations and how different instruments of funding can help you understand how the ownership of the company is going to look. And here I'm going to show you a bit of an example that we have at SeedBlink. This is how we do. This is how we work together with our founders to help them understand exactly how the new investment round that they are planning is going to affect their ownership within the capital. So first of all, you need to look at the cap table, and you need to understand if your convertibles, if there are any within the cap table, are going to convert within that new investment round, that new equity qualified round, as it is stated within the legal documents. Because if that's going to happen, you need to look at first at the conversion, then take into consideration the new money that's going to come in, and add those two things at the pre-money valuation in order to get to the post-money. So that would be a first step that you need to do. Moving forward, you need to take into consideration also if there are any stock option plans beneficiaries that are going to exercise their shares prior to the execution of the investment round, and because that will affect as well. Because when you look at the ownership of the people that are part of your cap table, usually the stock option plan beneficiaries are going to dilute them, but you need to make sure that this dilution is going to be correctly calculated. Why I'm talking here quite a lot about the stock option plan is because of the fact that within the last few months, I think I've seen quite a lot of stock option plans that are made different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. There are certain jurisdictions where the shares that are going to be offered towards the stock option plan beneficiaries are coming solely from the founders, or the creation of those shares are going to dilute only the founders. So that's the best case scenario when it comes to not over diluting and being able to calculate easily how everything within the cap table is going to work. On the other side, when the shares are not coming only from a select group of shareholders, and you will need to increase the whole amount of shares for the whole company, the stock option plan beneficiaries will dilute the people from the campaign. And that's one thing that usually might get misleading, and it creates errors within the calculations for the post-round campaign. The simulations also help you to actually look at multiple scenarios, because all right, you decide at the end of 2024 I'd like to raise a new investment round, and you need to start planning. Okay, how much do I need in order to grow to the next stage? How much am I actually going to be able to raise in the next round? Because first of all, you need to inform your existing investors what would their pro rata right mean in terms of the cash that they need to put in the company. Then moving forward to a due diligence process, you will seem a lot more professional when you discuss with a potential investor and you present the multiple layers of understanding regarding the current market when it comes to investments, and why are you planning to do such a thing, and why this is the minimum amount that you need, this is the actual, I don't know, flat amount that you need, or the higher amount. So creating these scenarios from scratch are going to help, first of all, you as a founder understand exactly how this is going to impact your company. Second of all the stock option plan beneficiaries, they need some transparency, and they will need to know how to take care of their entire process when it comes to exercising an option into a share. And also future investors will have clarity, at least on the cap table as it looks today, with the planning that you have. Usually what I can tell you is that during the due diligence process, what the lawyers of the investors are usually looking at percentages and shares, and those need to be correctly calculated up to either 4 or 6 decimals. That is interchangeable from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And each and every other lawyer might have certain requirements when it comes to how the cap table has been calculated, how the historical view of the cap table looks like, in order to understand if there is any mistakes done in the past that need to be corrected in order to have the correct ownership within. So yeah, that's what simulations do. The way we created our product was to help us and the founders from the companies that we have within our portfolio to understand and prepare as good as possible, and also to be able to inform our investors of how their ownership will look like after the investment round, the new investment round is gonna happen. Eric, please hop on if there is anything that you'd like to add here.
No, thanks.
Cool. All right. Then we're gonna move forward to understand the importance of share allocation. And usually this is a thing where we see mistakes happen because, okay, you start your company, there is not a large amount of shares. The price per share when you're raising your first equity investment round is quite high. This is going to, I don't know, be 2,500 euros. It's just an example that I'm using right now. Moving forward with new investment rounds, you will need to increase the number of shares in order to decrease the price per share, because it's way easier to raise an investment round with 10 investors when the price per share is going to be lower. That's where I'm talking about percentages of people that own shares within the company, because calculating at a really high price per share is going to be a lot harder to compare to, I don't know, 0.5 or 0.532, something like that. So the share allocation is quite important, and you need to take care of it early stage, because it makes your investment process a lot easier for both you and the investors as well. It's way simpler to give your investors access towards understanding how many shares they're gonna have. For example, if you have a price per share that's 11K and you have one investor that wants to invest 100K, receiving even like 9.3 shares might be impossible from a jurisdictional point of view, because I can tell you that in Europe right now there are quite multiple jurisdictions where you don't have the concept of fractional shares defined in the laws of those countries, and you're gonna have to take either 93 point something thousand euros out of the 100 that the investor wants to give, or either convince the investor to add up some more money in order to receive an exact amount of shares within the company. If you're gonna have a lower price per share, that's gonna be way easier to manage, and it will not create any operational burdens moving forward with the company. That's it on my side here. It's quite a straightforward thing. We've encountered this issue multiple times with the investment rounds that we've had via our platform, and also since we started with the new product, we've seen this issue to happen quite often. because people don't have the full grasp on it unless they have a large amount of investors come into the round. Eric, do you have anything here to add?
No, I think, it's just important, taking a step back is and explaining how an actual, equity round is being made, and just understanding how the price per share is set. And typically what happens is, you create a bunch of shares at the beginning of the company. You create, I don't know, 1 million shares or 10,000 shares at the beginning of the company, and they each have a nominal value and also like a market value. The nominal value is typically you put it at the lowest as possible, 1 cent or less than a cent, or really the minimum version possible, depending on each jurisdiction which allows it. And that allows you to actually have the biggest granularity as possible, and to actually reflect on terms of percentages, because then what can happen is, you're attracting, I don't know, 100K, but if you have a very big price per share, as Bogdan put it, you can only attract, I don't know, 95,000 or 102,000, depending on the price on the price per share, and that is then reflecting into the actual ownership and the percentage that is being translated into your cap table. So I think the main takeaway is how the to create as many shares as possible in order to basically be able to have a larger granularity in your cap table. Then the price per share is set at every new equity round. So basically, it's the new valuation divided by the number of fully diluted shares that you have in your company, and that gives the new price per share. And then, at every new round, at any new equity round, the price per share increases over time, hopefully, if the company is performing well. So I think that was just a small comment to understand how it looks like.
Cool. Moving forward, just a second. Here we are at the Q&A part. So if there are any questions regarding what we've discussed today, please address them into the chat, and both me and Eric will be more than happy to tackle them. Okay. So what we have up until now, I can see that, can I clean up the cap table after a round has taken place? Oh yeah, of course you can do that. But the suggestion would be to do it either prior or during the investment round, because it's easier when it comes to the legal infrastructure that you are going to use. But even if that's the case, you can do it after the round. You will need multiple signatures from all your shareholders in order to accept the syndicalization and the cleanup of the cap table. But in the end, you are able to do it without an issue after the round has taken place. And what is the mechanism for that? So what I can tell you from experience, we at SeedBlink, we've used two different mechanisms to clean up the cap table. The first one, and the recommended one from my point of view, is using a nominee structure that helps you aggregate a large number of investors. So you take like 40 people, you put them under a nominee structure. The nominee structure is going to be within your cap table as the shareholder, and will be the legal owner of the shares. But the investors that are aggregated within the bucket of the nominee structure are going to be the legal beneficiaries of those shares. This provides the maximum level of transparency, and also assurances for the investors that are aggregated under a nominee structure. So that would be the recommended way. I can tell you that we've done it multiple times for multiple companies from our portfolio, and we never had issues with that. And also, as I mentioned, we had another option, and we still have another option as well. And that's more or less a special purpose vehicle that you create. So that's a new company that you create, you take the existing shareholders within your cap table, so within your company, you transfer them within that new SPV, that new special purpose vehicle that you create. And after that, the SPV is going to be part of the cap table. This one is usually better to be implemented directly during the investment round. So when the people do the investment, you simply syndicate them inside the SPV, and the SPV is going to do the investment. And here the issue is that it might create a little bit of lack of transparency when it comes to double taxation, depending on each and every other investor, what jurisdiction they are from. So that's why I wouldn't recommend it if there is any possibility to use a nominee structure as mentioned.
There's a question related to what's the difference with an option pool, but I'm not sure compared to what.
Yeah. If you can clarify a little bit, I'd be more than happy to tackle that. Maybe what is the difference with an option pool when you're raising an investment round, and how that is going to affect your cap table? Usually, okay. Okay. I'm gonna give some insights on that side. So, when you have an option pool, as I mentioned, that's going to change how the dilution is going to happen when you raise an investment round. Because, for example, you have 100 shares. There is only one owner within the company, and you create a stock option plan for I don't know, 10 extra shares. You have two options. Those 10 shares can come from you as a founder, and that they are only going to dilute your ownership within the company. So when you raise the new investment round, you will actually you will actually be diluted by the stock option plan as the founder, and when the number of shares is going to increase because you add more investors, you are going to be diluted again. So that would be the first case. Or if you have 100 shares, first of all, you need to create the new 10 shares that are going to be offered towards the towards the beneficiaries. So first of all, you're going to be diluted by creating new shares, and then creating new shares for the investment as well. In the meantime, if Eva, if you can clarify a bit more on the question, maybe I got it, I didn't get it right, so you weren't referring to this. But if there is any other question, please feel free to address it. Legal considerations. Okay, so we have another one is, what are the legal considerations related to cap tables? Usually, during the due diligence process that an investor is going to perform on your company, one of the most important things that they're going to look at is going to be the cap table, because I mentioned quite a few times during the presentation, the webinar that we had today, a mistake early stage is going to affect your cap table completely even later on. So without any issue, any company that's gonna make a mistake early during a due diligence process, the lawyers are going to observe it, and they are going to ask you to actually make the corrections. And it's way harder. The more complex the cap table is, the harder it is to make fixing legal mistakes that happened at this stage. So I think that's the most important thing. And also I can tell you that I can think of a few jurisdictions where you are actually under the obligation to report any changes that happen within your cap table towards the trade registry within those countries where you are incorporated. So if there are mistakes when you are actually implementing the legal infrastructure of your company, those will need to be corrected prior to actually registering the cap table to the trade register. Okay, I think there is one more question in the chat. So let's say a company, a startup in pre-seed stage with few employees that are willing to invest in the company. What is the best instrument to allow them to do so without complicating the cap table? Stock options, phantom shares, or some sort of loan? I think it depends. it depends on how they want to approach the situation here. So if they are willing to invest within a company, then the stock option is not the answer here. Usually the stock option plan is used to incentivize the people from your company to work towards the success of the company, because if the company valuation increases, their stock increases as well. And at the end of the day, the benefits that are going to come from the stock option plan should be defined by their dedication towards the company, not their investment. What stock options and phantom shares are the same thing, so it applies for the both of them. Both of them are ways to actually implement this type of benefits towards employees. If they would like to invest, usually my suggestion would be going back to what I said earlier, a syndicate. So you create a syndicate within your company that's going to aggregate all the employees that want to invest. If you're raising I don't know, if you're raising a convertible note, or if you're raising equity, that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be defined. So if you're raising a convertible note round, they can be part of that, and you can syndicate their investment via either a nominee or an SPV. Cool. I see that there are no other questions in chat. Thank you for attending the webinar. It was a pleasure for the both of us to be here, and I hope the session that we had today made it a bit clear on the importance of the cap table when it comes to the company growth. I think my colleagues that helped us organize this meeting will come back with the slides towards you. And also, if at any point you would like to ask more questions towards me or Eric, you're probably going to be able to do so by having our contact info, at least our LinkedIn and mails within the communication that's going to be done as a follow-up by my colleagues. Eric, if you'd like to add anything, feel free to do so. This is the time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely.
Have a nice day, guys. Thanks again.
Bye.